We considered last time, as we looked at Psalm 9, the reality that God is the great judge of all the earth. Psalm 9, verses 7 and 8. The Lord reigns forever. He has established his throne for judgment. He will judge the world in righteousness. He will govern the peoples with justice. And we saw that while God is presently judging the world in righteousness, moment by moment, day by day in this life, bringing justice to the oppressed and victimized, calling the wicked to account in this life, nevertheless, not every wrong is put right by the judge in this life. We considered Augustine's comments on why God, in his infinite wisdom, has decided to reserve some justice until the very end, the final judgment. If God were to reserve all justice until the very end, then we would doubt, perhaps many of us would even deny God's providence in this world, let alone a final judgment at the last great day. On the other hand, if God were to reserve no justice until the very end, then the wicked, who we saw often escape God's judgments in this life, would have a false security in this life. On top of that, the godly would despair of seeing justice fully prevail in the end. So this is how God, the judge of all the earth, has determined to rule the world in righteousness from his throne of judgment. But this inevitably leads to a crisis in the hearts of the godly, a crisis of discouragement, sometimes even a crisis of faith, verging on despair as the godly man or godly woman looks around them in this world, in this life, and sees the wicked prospering in their wickedness. Sometimes that wickedness even touches their own lives. And friends, Psalm 10 draws us right into, we could say, the heart of the crisis of the heart in this regard. Verse 1, "Why, O Lord, do you stand far off? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? In his arrogance, the wicked man hunts down the weak who are caught in the schemes he devises. He boasts of the cravings of his heart. He blesses the greedy and reviles the Lord. In his pride, the wicked does not seek him. In all his thoughts, there is no room for God. His ways are always prosperous. He is haughty, and your laws are far from him. He sneers at all his enemies. He says to himself, nothing will shake me. I'll always be happy and never have trouble. His mouth is full of curses and lies and threats. Trouble and evil are under his tongue. He lies in wait near the villages from ambush. He murders the innocent, watching in secret for his victims. He lies in wait like a lion in cover. He lies in wait to catch the helpless. He catches the helpless and drags them off in his net. His victims are crushed. They collapse. They fall under his strength. He says to himself, God has forgotten. He covers his face and never sees. The psalmist goes on, arise, Lord, lift up your hand, O God. Do not forget the helpless. And how does God respond? Well, he tells us here in verse 17 that he hears us. That he hears us. You hear, O Lord, the desire of the afflicted. And God does more than simply tell us he hears us. He promises to encourage us through the discouragement. You encourage them and you listen to their cry in the beautiful language of the old King James. Thou wilt prepare their heart. God will prepare their heart to persevere through this life until they see justice finally and fully prevail. 2 Corinthians 12 and verse 9 remind us that God's grace is always sufficient to meet us where we're at and keep us from sinking in this life when all human strength has come to an end. And friends, Psalm 10 emphasizes that same great truth, so that the people of God can take heart, so that they can commit themselves and their cause to the Lord, whatever that may be, and so that they can persevere to the end, when they will all, God's people, see more clearly than they ever could have imagined what is spoken of here in Psalm 10 and verse 16. The Lord is King forever and ever. The nations will perish from his land. Psalm 10.